Lauren has been in for her MOT, and yes, it is MOT time again for Lauren today, and we've certainly picked a terrible day for it. It also doesn't feel like 11 and a half months since we last took this bike for an MOT. But that's how long ago it was, 11 and a half months. And I remember last year, of course, I was fixing this bike, and my friend Ed, he said, you've got to get this bike fixed by the 1st of May. And that was because he wanted to see Lauren at the very first paint and bike night. Now, unfortunately, we did miss that deadline, but we made it there about a month later. But to look back now and to think about all that work, all that pain and all that grief that we had to go through. And let's not forget that no sooner had we got this bike an MOT and we took her to paint and bike night, she then developed a fuel leak, which was a pain and involved removing the tank and the pump and the seal, etc, etc. And since then, well, we've had a little bit of fun. You know, we've had a little bit of backache and a little bit of wrist ache, but we've also been out, been to bike night, been to Jolly's bike night, been to Bikes in the Park too at Jolly's, even went out on a charity ride out, which unfortunately proved to be absolutely terrible. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do that one this year. Maybe last year, maybe the terrible one last year was the exception, and it's obviously not meant to be like that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we try it again this year, or maybe we just decide on account of how bad it was last year that we leave that one this year. Well, here we are, and what more can we say other than good luck, Lauren. So whilst we're waiting around for the MOT to get done, I'm having a look at the MOT history to try and work out how many miles that Lauren and I have done this last year. And I can't quite remember exactly how many she's got on the clock. But at her last MOT, she was on 35,730. And when I get home and I'm editing this video, I'm going to have a look and just see what her mileage is on now. Because I reckon that we've only done about 800 miles. Maybe a little bit more than 800. Yeah, I reckon just over 800 miles we've done. It'll be interesting to see how many miles I put on the bike in this next year. And looking back on the MOT history, the previous owner MOT'd the bike, well, the last time the previous owner MOT'd the bike was back in 2019, and she was on 35,479. So in the time that he had this bike on the road, she probably did, well, they probably did about 250 miles. That means that in the last 5 years, Lauren's only actually done about 1,100 miles. It's like she's retired. And the people who know me, I reckon at least a couple of my friends are probably sat there thinking, well, you're saying it's like she's retired, Pete, but you've gone and bought a Daytona and you ride her around at 30 mile an hour. So yeah, kind of is like she's retired. And it kind of is. It's interesting when you're out filming in public, a lot of people will frown at you. These are the people who typically don't watch anything on YouTube or TikTok, and they don't really understand the concept of content creation. But the minute you're filming near a train track or at a train station, no one says anything. Everyone just assumes that you're a train spotter. And I could have been a train spotter, genuinely. I am a bit of a nerd, for those of you that don't know me. I am a bit of a nerd. I'm not quite train spotter level, but growing up, I could have been. You know, a little bit of a nudge here or there, and I could have been an avid train spotter, and I'd have probably loved it as well. Don't get me wrong, growing up, I got into Star Trek massively. Still watch it to this day. Won't hesitate to watch any of the Star Trek series. And a few years back, my friend Aaron, he got me into Star Wars, and I've watched all of them. I love them. So that's where I'm at. It's like I'm above Star Wars, but beneath train spotting. And that's my nerdy niche right there.
Well, there we go. 1 hour later and a KFC for lunch. Lauren has been in for her MOT and she's failed. Yes, that's right. Lauren has failed her MOT. And she's got a couple of advisories. And what's interesting is that last year she got a couple of advisories. One of which was a advisory for a loud exhaust. Well, yeah, of course, we know Lauren's got a loud exhaust. So that advisory didn't surprise me. And she also got an advisory for drive chain slightly loose. Yes, last year, after getting that pass and having the advisory of the chain being a bit loose, I went home and tightened it up. And as far as I'm concerned, it's okay. You know, it's within the specified parameters. But the MOT man thinks it's loose. So I'll have another look at that, but I'm not expecting to have to do anything with that. So yeah, interestingly, we got 2 advisories. Actually, no, we got 3 advisories, because there's an advisory on the front brake that says something like a fluctuation in braking effort. So I spoke to him about that, and he said, he showed me the machine actually, it's quite interesting, that you have to hold a certain amount of brake pressure whilst the wheel's turning, and it's meant to have the same amount of pressure applied. He said, but it slightly fluctuates. He says it can happen when bikes haven't been used much, which, yeah, that is Lauren. But it can also happen when you're looking at potentially old and worn discs. You know, if you've got a warped disc, or could even be when you've got a caliper that isn't playing ball like it's supposed to. He said you might not even notice it on the road. It could get worse, and if it does, you'll notice it, but sometimes these things just fix themselves, especially if it's from a bike that hasn't been used. Now, 1100 miles in 5 years is not a great deal of use, so it could just be that, but I'm going to have a look anyway. So what did she actually fail on then? Well, let me find somewhere to pull over and I'll explain what she failed on. So she failed on 2 things. First thing is the brake lever, and the failure was that there was insufficient reserve travel on the lever, and that was because it's raining, I'm wearing my winter gloves, and so on the way over I was reaching a little too much for the lever, so I just clicked this, and I meant to click it once or twice, but it seems as though it had gone all the way. It had gone from number 6 to number 1, and it comes so far back that there's no reserve travel there. So the guy said, look, just click it back. Now you've got plenty of reserve travel, that's fine. And the second thing is that her headlamp aim is too high. Now, fair play to the guy. You know, he said, look, adjust that lever, that's fine, that's a pass. He put the bike in front of the, you know, the machine that checks your beam settings. You know, they lined it up, got the headlamp on, tried to adjust the headlamp on that adjuster just there, and the bloody headlamp isn't moving. So this weekend we need to get into that headlight and see what on earth is going on. Hopefully it can just be put back together. I mean, it could be a broken adjuster, but I'm hoping that whatever it is, we can get it sorted this weekend. From my experience of car headlights, the adjusters are always threaded, and sometimes there's like a ball and socket joint on the end of them. So this could simply be, you know, sometimes if you unscrew an adjuster too far, it can fall out. Not sure how that would have happened, because I haven't touched the headlight since she was MOT'd last year, but that is a possibility. And also sometimes these ball and socket arrangements, sometimes they can pop off as well. So it could just be something as simple as refitting an adjuster, or it could be a broken adjuster. Whatever it is, we'll get in there, we'll get it fixed, we'll order some new parts if we need to, and then we'll give the guy a ring back, we'll get in for a retest, and we'll get Lauren an MOT. Yeah, I didn't think you were stopping.